what is happening is your experience is not speaking for itself because you are not framing it in a way that leads a hiring manager to trust you.
Welcome to the Disgruntled PM podcast, your weekly therapy session for the chaotic world of project management, transforming daily frustrations into real action. Welcome, everybody. I'm Trevor, the Disgruntled PM, joined today by my guest and probably equally as disgruntled, Kayla Quijas. So,
Hi, Trevor.
Kayla, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience for the 5 people that don't know who you are?
I'm sure your audience is more than that. My name is Kayla Quijas. I am a senior manager of legal project management at K&L Gates, and I am a career coach for professionals wanting to transition into project management without starting over.
Oh, you sold yourself short there a little bit.
Oh, what makes you say that?
Well, I think you're a little bit more accomplished than that. But one of the first things I want to touch on right when we get started is you're a PM for a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talk about project management all day and everyone's like, oh, it's more than IT, it's more than this. But what does a PM do at a law firm?
That's a really, really good question. And I'm going to start with there are different types of PMs at a law firm. We actually have a PMO with project managers, and that's more of the technical side, like the people who roll out our software and all of that stuff. I am a legal project manager, which means I sit on a completely different team. And we at legal project managers generally, I'm going to tell you what they generally do, and then I'll tell you what I do.
We can't get into specifics without a lawyer present.
Yeah. Exactly. We can talk about working with lawyers, but I love working with lawyers. So what a legal project manager normally does day to day is they will sit on a single legal matter, let's say a single litigation matter, and they will oversee the whole project. They will, if there's a budget from the client, they'll watch the budget. There's going to be scope, right? Maybe they want to go to trial. Maybe they don't. If they want to go to trial, that's an expansion of scope. They watch deadlines. They make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it. This is normal project management stuff, but the type of project is different. It's a legal project.
So really, we're just changing terms, but it's,
Yeah.
I mean, is that mostly waterfall based because it's a linear process and the legal system is fairly linear, or do you have to run agile with that because dynamics have changed?
It's funny. There actually is a guy that does, I think it's agile within legal, and I think he calls himself the agile. What does he call himself? I can't remember. I'd have to look at it, but there's kind of there. He was doing a push for agile in legal. It doesn't work very well, because lawyers don't love Kanbans, and it's just. This is my cat, by the way. This is Ritz.
Well, cats are always welcome on the show. If you're watching, you get to see Ritz.
Yes, my beautiful black cat. I have 4 black cats. So, okay. So about what it is in legal. Yeah, it's just it's just a different environment. And that's the thing about project management, right? There are so many different environments that you can do it in. And I do want to take a second to talk about the difference between what a legal project manager normally does and what I actually do, if we have time for that.
Wait a second. There's nuance and context. All I'm waiting for is it depends.
Right? Oh my gosh, yes, it depends all the time. So I'm more of a program manager, which means I sit on our firm's largest client accounts. We're talking tens of millions of dollars here. And I make sure that the overall program is headed in the right direction. So this can consist of 12,000 legal matters, and those are the types of programs that I'm sitting on. I might sneeze. Sorry. You'll have to cut that.
No cut. No edits.
Right? So those are the types of client relationships that I'm sitting on. I have never once sat on a single legal matter end to end. I am not a legal expert. I have never been a lawyer. There are legal project managers on my team that have JDs. They were lawyers. They do more of the in the weeds, like end to end project management on a single project. But I look at things operationally, holistically. I make sure the strategy is there and I make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And yes, there's a budget and I help us monitor the budget. So what I do is just a little different.
So when you're building, I mean, I'm endlessly fascinated by this type of work just because I've done outside the box projects. I've spoken about them publicly of some of the stuff I've done. And I've brought on PMs that do outside the box projects because yes, project management is everywhere, but I'm tired of hearing everyone's a PM. There are skill
Mhm.
set. It is a skill set, it is a requirement. It is a knowledge base. And when you see it in other applications, it's like, well, how are you applying, we'll call it the science of project management to what you do that's a different environment, but yet the fundamentals don't change.
Yeah, that's a really good. I love that you're talking about that. So, I mean, the fundamentals and what are crucially important in what I do is just very crisp, clean, proactive communication. It is so important because I am working with lawyers. I love working with lawyers. They are whip smart and they are skeptical and they have a very high standard for things. So if you don't communicate well with them, and if you are not clear with them, if you are not concise with them, because their time is money, they are billing every single one of their minutes. So if you're not concise with them, you're not going to get any traction at all. I would say, I very rarely use Gantt charts. I very rarely use RACI charts or stakeholder lists. Like these, I think that what is taught in PMBOK, like PMI PMBOK is, it exists. Companies do it, but the real nitty-gritty of project management lives outside of that book. It is very different in in practice. It's communication, it's power without actual authority. It's getting people to do things inside a specific business context, and that's where kind of the nuance of it being in law becomes relevant because now it's a very different business context.
Well, one of the things I want to dig in a little bit deeper on is lawyers, in my limited experience with them, are
Mm.
very much language matters, words matter,
Oh, yeah.
context is everything in definition. And I can only imagine dealing with them when you say something like you say, I can't even think of a word right now that would just have multiple meanings. But you say something to them and they look at you and go, define that before we continue this conversation.
Never had that happen. But it's apt, I think.
You know, that's my vision of a law firm is you're sitting there doing a status update and then a lawyer stops you every five words and goes, okay, explain this. How does this work? What are we
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I rarely do like formal status
Yeah.
updates. I'll send an email, right? Law firms love emails still. Send an email, hey, this is what's happening. This is what I need from you. I think where it more shows up is in conversations that I have with them, and I'll make a suggestion and I kind of get very blunt, no, and this is why. So
Wait,
it
you're
becomes
you're a blunt person?
I'm blunt, but the lawyers are I mean, that comes from working with lawyers too. Like I have to get lawyers to do what what I need them to do. It's so hard. So, I definitely can't beat around the bush. I have to project confidence even when I'm not feeling very confident. That was a really hard lesson learned. But to sit there in a meeting with a lawyer and say, here's what I think our next steps should be, and to have them, if you don't say it right and if you're not convincing, they're just gonna be like, "No," and sometimes they'll explain why, but I've actually had, not at my current firm, but at other firms, lawyers tell me, "That's stupid." So, you
Well,
know
but the question is as I've established in a lot of my content, I consider myself to be smarter than the average bear in project management. But
Mhm.
when I deal with engineers, developers, any other industry, I always tell them I'm the dumbest person in the room.
I say that too.
And
Not quite the same way, but I'll say, "Hey, I'm not a legal expert, you are. Like, this is my suggestion. Ultimately, I need your guidance."
I would also challenge that you not being the legal expert in the room, when they're all arguing about case law, you're sitting there saying, well, I'm using my common sense to say this. And everyone just kind of looks at you sometimes and goes, where'd that come from?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they can definitely, there is definitely a lot of, intellectualizing things, and that does require me sometimes to step in and say, "Hey, let's make sure we're on the right track and we're actually pushing something forward." And again, it's very strategic, kind of high level stuff that I'm doing. So there isn't always immediate, like, here are the KPIs and here are the tasks and all of, but it just is trying to get everybody to go in the same direction. But I love working with lawyers. I truly do. I understand them.
And you have built-in resources to call when you get yourself into trouble.
You would think so, but it does not work that way. I do have some friends that are lawyers outside of
Yeah.
my firm.
Well, and that kind of leads into another topic because I know you're big on strategies for helping people get employed. And I was
Mhm.
actually I was actually thinking about this yesterday when I was getting dressed. And that is we talk about how how to get inside the building, how to get our resumes inside the building.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this prepping for our conversation and I was like, they're those lawyers. If you're at a cocktail party and someone says, "What do you do?" That takes the tone of the entire rest of the conversation of what do you answer with. And if you answer, "I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor," like there's 4 or 5 professions that you can say, and someone always has a, "Well, if you've got a few minutes, I've got this situation."
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
everybody, the good people will say, "Oh, here's my 30-second snapshot. If you have more questions, call my office. What do you do?" And build that and take that business card as a resource.
Mhm. Yep.
Because as you know, in those professions, you always need somebody that does something else and
Mhm.
somebody always needs you.
Absolutely. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I actually just did that. There was, a guy, he's been looking for a job in PM for a long time. And we were messaging on LinkedIn. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm seeing that you're putting forward. You're so close to it, you don't see it. But
Mhm.
here's what I'm seeing, and I think this is your problem. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That was so helpful. Like, I'm going to redo my resume and my LinkedIn. Can I send it to you?" And I was like, "Well, if you want to talk about what it is to work together, then we can definitely do that. But I'm happy to I pointed you in the right direction." So yeah, it's totally true.
Yeah, and I'll use a personal anecdote is a couple weeks ago, I had somebody reach out to me and they're in a technical field and they wanted to they were thinking about moving into project management and they
Hmm.
were asking me my advice. So I hopped on a call with them, talked them through, here's what project management really is, not what you think it is,
Yeah.
having worked on projects. And then I said, if you've got the money, join PMI and take some of the free online courses there to learn about the fundamentals of project management and see if this is the right fit for you.
Hmm.
And we messaged back and forth. I reviewed his resume, gave him some feedback on the project side of his resume. And later on, we started talking about LinkedIn and I was like, he said, I've reviewed thousands of the most popular profiles and done all this data work as a developer would to understand things. And I was like, okay. And then I decided to rebrand my profile
Hmm.
a couple weeks later and I messaged him and I said, "Hey, do you mind taking a look at this?" He's like, "Not a problem at all," and gave me all kinds of feedback. And
Yeah.
same with you, we were friends. I asked you to take a quick glance. And because I was so close to my profile and spent
Hmm.
ungodly amounts of time doing it, you pointed out a few things that I missed because I'm so close to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, for everybody, Trevor, for business owners, for job seekers, for transitioners who are looking to transition into project management, you are so close to your experience that you can't step back and see kind of the patterns that you're putting forward and what other people might be seeing in you. And that's kind of where I come in and I review people's entire profiles and say, hey, you're not actually coming off as a project manager. You're coming off as an IT lead who does project management. Those are very different things. And it's really hard to kind of switch gears when you've been doing it for so long and you've been speaking a certain type of language. And it's just so true that being so close to something, it kind of makes your judgment, it can skew your judgment a little bit, make it hard to reframe things.
Well, and it's also too, I see this post at least once a week. They they've been looking for jobs for months. 50 applications. My experience should speak for itself. Why doesn't it? You know, I'm sure you've seen that post at least once a week.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it does kind of break my heart because people, they don't understand. There's a lot of things about that post that, like, first of all, and I'm gonna say this because people need to hear it. That post is not helping you. First of all, you are coming across as desperate, not as someone that they want to hire. So it feels good in the moment to get that out, right? Like you're so frustrated, and I totally get it. So this, my experience should speak for itself thing. It should. It doesn't, because so I am a hiring manager. I just got promoted to senior manager. I oversee our team. I am hiring for a legal project manager right now. um,
Resume
so
in
I
hand, soon to be submitted.
right. So, but I understand from the hiring manager's side what they are looking for, and what often keeps people from moving forward with you is this gap in trust. The trust gap. They don't trust that you can run the types of projects that they have in the unique types of environments that they do it in. Even even if I got an IT project manager branded resume for a legal project manager job, I'm probably not going to look at that because it's not my environment. I have very specific things that I need to get done with very specific stakeholders that are difficult people, they difficult personalities. Um,
They're
so
lawyers.
I think they're lawyers, right? Exactly. Again, I love them, but I think what I love about them is they are kind of difficult and I like a good challenge. But anyway, so what is happening is your experience is not speaking for itself because you are not framing it in a way that leads a hiring manager to trust you. And what the good thing is that that is a fixable problem. You just have to close that gap. And there's a lot of ways to close that gap. I think people often choose choose the wrong one, which is credentials. I mean, I see people with, alphabet soup after their name all the time because they're trying to use the PMP, the ACP, all of that stuff to prove trust. But hiring managers don't hire credentials, they hire competency. And that comes through in the way that you frame your experience.
I'm feeling a little personally attacked right now because I have both of those amongst many others.
Wait, you have IT project manager? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I've got a PMP, I've got an ACP, I've
Oh,
got a
yeah, yeah,
PSM, I've got a Six Sigma black belt. Should I keep going?
right. Well, okay,
Well,
I also have a PMP and I have a Six Sigma black belt, and I'm actually studying for my PGMP right now. I am not knocking credentials.
no,
What
I'm just kidding.
I
But
know, I know. I see it all the time though. People just over-index for credentials, and it really just does a lot of harm.
well, I'm gonna shout out a previous guest that I had on, Christine Duvall,
Mhm.
and me and her were talking offline one day, and I don't think she's gonna care that I'm sharing this story, but we were talking about credentials and letters after our names and stuff, and I had the alphabet soup name on LinkedIn for the
Yeah.
longest time. And then I finally decided I'm just going to shorten it to PMP because that's really the only one that anybody cares about. They know it
Huh.
exists. And everything else, if you care about it, if you care about anything else that I do, you can scroll down and find it. Because I know
Mhm.
when I'm looking at somebody's profile, I scroll down and I look at their certs too.
Yeah.
And
You know, it's really interesting to hear someone in IT say that the PMP is what matters. And it's so, because people are like, oh, the ACP, the ACP. It's
the
just, yeah.
ACP is PMI is trying to make fetch a thing with the ACP because
Mhm.
I got it before they rebranded it back when they were doing, what was it? Scaled Agile. They had the 1 year Scaled Agile certs. They had those with the ACP, and then they had to pick a direction, and they chose the ACP to bring it back. But it, it's a generalist cert, and I've got it
Mhm.
because I'll be honest, I got it because it was paid for by by
Mhm.
my company, and I learned a lot about Agile when I got it, but it hasn't done anything specific for me. I've never seen the ACP as a requirement on a on a job requirement list. I have seen the PMP. I've seen Scrum Master. I've seen Six Sigma, but I've never seen the ACP. I've never seen the PGMP. I've never seen
Yeah.
the PFMP. And I think that we fool ourselves into thinking that these are emotional support blankets of certifications when what are
Yes.
they actually doing for you?
Yes, yes, exactly. And I mean, so I'm getting my PGMP because I like a good challenge. Like I like to learn.
Oh,
And I
that is a
think what your point
challenge. I looked into that.
I hear it's hard. I hear it's hard. I hear that the questions are framed kind of weirdly and that you have to think about. But anyway, like that's something that I'm actually kind of looking forward to. I think I
It's
think
a
where
little
credentials
twisted.
can I know, I'm a sadist. I think where credentials can really come in handy are confidence, and I think I heard a little bit of that in what you said, like, "Oh, I learned a lot about Agile," and that right there, maybe not necessarily for you, but for other people, I think that really does a lot. Just, like, knowing that you have that knowledge in your brain something switches and I see it with my clients all the time because I will tell them I recommend the PMP because yes, it checks a box. It's kind of a barrier to entry. Yeah, it's like
It
the
really
bare
is.
minimum. Yeah, your PMP. And by the way, you can probably get it if you're listening to this podcast. That's something I help my clients with all the time is how do you reframe your existing experience so that
Mhm.
it's project experience? So I and when so not only does it tick that box for them, but I see this confidence transformation in them when they get it, and I think that really does something. So they see not only do I have the experience, but now I feel more confident that I know the language of project management.
Yeah, and I've told this story before, but I had a boss who I was working for a security company and we were having lunch and I said, I really don't know a ton about this stuff, but I had the PMP equivalent of this physical security cert. So it was like the gold standard. It was the one that everybody had. And he looked at me and he said, if I ever hear you say that again, I'm going to fire you. Because when you hold the certification, there are some, like we look at the PMP as, oh, it's standard procedure. Everyone's got it because we've had ours for a while. The person that just got it is looking
Mhm.
like I've conquered the mountain. And
Yeah.
and when we start downplaying some of our accomplishments, you're not just downplaying yours. You're downplaying
Yeah.
everybody else with those letters after their name. And
Mhm.
and I always say too, the flip side of that is when you walk into a meeting and you see the PM on the other side of the table has a PMP, you automatically baseline, okay, we have this baseline of knowledge already established. I don't have to dumb things
Mhm.
down. I don't have to use context of certain phrases and words because it's assumed language. And
Yeah.
then you meet that one person that passed the PMP by 1 point and
Mhm.
and you just look at them and go, we are not the same and you are a moron.
I don't know that I would go that far.
Well,
I
but I
will
mean,
say
but I've done interviews for roles too, and I've seen PMPs. I've Another
yeah.
one that I always tell people is whatever you put on your resume, check it beforehand that it's in the registry
Yeah.
and it's verifiable.
Yeah.
Because if you put on there,
I
I've got a
think
PMP, I'm going to ask you, the hiring manager,
yeah.
what do? You go to PMI's registry and check for their PMP, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I wanna make sure they have it, and, honestly, I just told our recruiter, I was like, "PMP, nice, but maybe not necessary depending on the
Hmm.
background." Like, here's the thing about the PMP, it is exactly what you said. First of all, I wanna say that halfway through mine, I thought I was gonna fail. I was like, "Oh, crap. Like, this is not what I was expecting." I did not fail, obviously, but I think that it does test a little bit how you think about, if you can think like a project manager or not, I think, but it doesn't test how you get things done in real life. And what you are speaking to right there is credentials do not equal competency.
Hmm.
Competency. Just like a JD doesn't mean you're the best lawyer in the world, or an MBA doesn't mean that you're the best in a business environment. It is the same thing. And I think what happens with a lot of people who want to transition into project management is they get their PMP and they expect the floodgates to open. Like their inbox is going to be filled with recruiters that just can't wait to hire them. And it doesn't work that way because you can put those letters behind your name and it does not change the way you're presenting your experience. It does very little to shorten that trust gap. It all comes down to how you are talking about your experience.
Yeah, and you highlighted a great point there of, we all talk about conquering the mountain, and I've told this extensively. I've written about it. I've put it out there so many times. Took me 4 tries to pass the PMP.
I didn't know that. Man,
Yep.
I'm like, good on you to keep
I
trying.
I had to wait the year and learn the hard way
Oh,
that the year that you have to wait is after the 3rd failure, not after the first one. So I was
uh,
behind. So I actually waited probably close to 15 months to retest from when I first went from the first failure. But
yeah.
but I make that a point to know that to let people know that there's so much success out there and there's so many people talking about the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, but we don't ever talk about just the baseline of, hey, I got my PMP, took me a little
Mhm.
bit of work, but guess what? After I passed it, I was still going to work the next day. I was still putting my pants on. I was still parenting my children. I was still doing everything. Nobody, like you said, the floodgates didn't open. Nobody said, "Oh, we got a new PMP. Oh, I gotta offer him a job."
Right.
I
Exactly.
didn't even get a pay raise.
I was waiting to hire him for him to get those 3 letters
Yeah,
behind his name. It
like
doesn't work that way.
I joke that when I got my CPP, which is the physical security cert, they give you a score out of 100, unlike PMI.
Mhm.
But I sent to tell my boss that I passed because he put some humorous pressure on me. There's like, I passed on the first time.
Cool.
So so I sent him my score and it was in the green zone. It was like in the 80s, I think. Sent him the screenshot of my test report because I got an email to me after the test. And he responds in a text with, mine was higher.
I thought you were gonna say, congratulations, now you can work here.
No, it was just mine was higher. And in context, he was one of my favorite people. So it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
it wasn't mean.
for
It was
sure.
just, but that's the point though, is that we put so much pressure on ourselves to pass these exams and, the floodgates don't open. It's a barrier to entry now.
Mhm.
And I had a friend who was a very accomplished PM prior. He left the industry for a while, was looking for work, couldn't find anything, very, very accomplished PM. And I told him, you've got to get the PMP to get through the ATS. So he goes out, passes it first try, of course, because, why not? And now he's contracting at a major company.
Mhm.
All he needed was that barrier to entry to pass, but he had 10 years of extensive, detailed experience prior to that.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, exactly, and I wanna talk about the ATS for a hot second because
Have at it.
people are all about that. So I wanna clarify some things about the ATS. It is
Wait.
not it's
Can I
not
can I
Yeah,
make some guesses first before you get into it?
go for it.
Because we all see LinkedIn, so I've got to make these assumptions.
Right? Uh-huh.
It's all AI based, detecting the AI resumes.
Yep, exactly. That is pure myth. So okay, a lot of companies are starting to build AI into their ATS, and I will get applicant tracking system, by the way. So let's talk about what an applicant
Very
tracking
good.
system is.
Very
Yeah.
good. You listen, you follow the rules.
Yeah, I follow the rules. Um, so AI is artificial intelligence, in case you need to know. Okay, so the ATS, applicant tracking system, it tracks applications. That is what it does. It's like a Kanban board in the background that's like applied to interviewed, like you get all these different phases that someone is moving you through and they can click on your little card and your resume is there and they can look at your resume. Now, it used to work, and what companies still are doing often is a control F for project management or, a Boolean search. They are searching for keywords. A human is searching for keywords, not some overlord robot that's, scanning and you're not hitting an 80% score and they're kicking it out some sort of thing. Now, what you're talking about with the PMP making it past the ATS, that can be a thing because you can program in knockout questions.
Hmm.
So if someone answers no, then you get an auto reject. Or if you ask, you have at least 5 years of project management experience and someone says no, knockout question, auto reject. But it is not because you didn't hit 80% of the keywords that they're looking for.
So when I do, so let's put this into real world application practice. When you
Mhm.
hit that easy apply button on LinkedIn and it gives you those 5 questions, odds
Yes.
are, odds are if you're answering no to any of those, you're going to get the reject after you hit
Mhm.
submit.
Yep,
So
exactly,
that's how
exactly, knockout questions.
that's how that works in the real world, kind of putting context
Mhm.
to what Kayla is saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have done extensive research on this. AI is starting to be used, and I have been looking at, like, vendors, like, ATS vendors' actual documentation in the background. Here's what's happening. Yes, they are starting to give relevancy scores. There's one system in particular that will ask a candidate, like, "Do you wanna be scored? Yes or no?" And, whether or not you wanna do that is something else entirely, but no, the AI it's gonna look at your resume, and it's gonna say, "How much of a percentage match are you?" It's not keywords. AI is smarter than that. We know this, right? Like, it's not looking for keywords, it's looking for your overall positioning and experience holistically, rather than you just smattering those keywords in there. And yeah, a recruiter can sort it by relevancy. So if you're 80% or higher, you might get in that top bits. And if you opted out of that relevancy score, I'm just going to say how I would function. I'm probably going to look at the people that are recommended first. And if I can't find someone, I might look in that pile of people who opted out.
Well, I think this is a great place for us to pause to talk about the Patreon, because what I want to do is I want to explain that every guest comes on, as I'm sure everybody knows, and they participate in the postmortem interviews, which are a bonus conversation that I have where I extract their expertise in actionable tips. So Kayla is going to be joining us to talk about how we can help get noticed and some interview strategies, as well as tips for exuding confidence when you aren't confident, because I'm sure she's gotten a lot of practice from lawyers about how that works, and that was one that was just added on the fly. Let's go back to talking about the ATS, because I really want to have a conversation about this with somebody who is a hiring manager and also coaches candidates, because we've heard all the stories like, oh, put them in 1 point font, put the keyword, go through the job, go through the job description, find the keywords, put them in half point font in white in the what is it, the footer or the header of your resume,
Mhm.
and they'll get
Mhm.
picked up.
Sure. Okay, great. What are you going to do when you get into the interview? What are you going to do? Like
Well,
that.
and the other one is have AI tailor your resume to the job description.
Mm,
Like, I've done that, and I got back a
yeah.
resume that had tons of things I have never in my life even looked at, never mind done, but
Yeah.
they were tailored to what the AI thought the resume wanted or thought the job description wanted.
Yeah, I would really like to spend some time on this because I think AI is doing so much damage in the job market in a lot of ways. Like, first of all, there are those systems that will take your resume and they'll say, "Oh, we'll apply to 50 jobs for you a
Mhm.
week. We'll tailor your resume." And that's why we're getting all of these openings that are filled, 100 plus applications in the first 30 minutes. That's what's happening. It's part of what's happening. Also, I think that when people are using AI like that to tailor their resumes, they're using it in place of positioning. And what they're probably doing is applying to project manager roles all across the board. Trevor, what you do as a project manager and what I do as a project manager are wildly different. Same core set of skills. We're still trying to push people forward to get stuff done, but it is if you looked at my job description and I looked at yours, night and day, very, very different. So if you're using AI to try to tailor your experience across all these different types of project management roles, that's going to fail really fast because it's too vast, it's too wide, and your overall positioning is too generic. So when someone looks at you, you look like a generic project manager. You don't look like you solve the types of problems in their specific environment. You have to get really, really specific. Now, if you understand that and you know how to use AI really, really well, and you understand your own experience and background really, really well, that could definitely help. It can get you there, but in the end, I really recommend people do it themselves and that they stick to one industry and area. You don't have to rewrite your resume 5,000 times.
And one thing this is just a personal thing that I've kind of started that I thought about a long time ago was I invested a lot of time into networking, and I hate using the word networking. I use relationship building. But when everyone says have your base resume and I pass that around. And when I tailor it, I trim around the edges. It's
Exactly.
adjusting a phrase to sound better for that role because my thought process is probably different than what you're thinking of. Mine is I've got a vast network of people. Some of them know each other, some of them don't. And when someone says, "Hey, I know a PM," and then they say, "Oh, it's Trevor." "Oh, I know Trevor." And then I send them my resume, and then the person that I know passes them the resume that they had on file. Going back to that trust
Yeah.
piece, if they're two radically different resumes, I've now lost all human capital I had because they're looking
Mm,
at two completely different resumes in front of them
such a good point.
and saying, well, which one is Trevor? Because one of them has to be and one of them can't be.
Yeah, your trust is just blown at that point because they know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you're getting into what you're starting to touch on is this concept that I came up with called the project management readiness iron triangle because we love iron triangles as project managers, right? Like I thought I was so clever when I came up with this, but it is three things. It is your experience, your network, and your credentials. And all of these, just like the iron triangle in project management, they balance each other out so that in the end, you have a nice, well rounded quality positioning as a candidate, especially if you're moving into project management. This is what we look at: experience, credentials, network. So, what you're talking about is the experience and the networking part. Those two are supportive of each other as you're going into applying for these roles. Now you also have the credential part, right? And at one point, it sounds like you were starting to kind of drift into that over indexing for credentials. And this is where the balance becomes so important. If you drift too far in one direction, you're not going to get any traction. So if you just have a solid network, but like you said, you destroy trust or your positioning isn't solid, you're out there networking and people ask you, what do you do? And you have a really bad answer to it, then that's not going to help you. I tell my clients that they need to be strong in at least two of these. Being strong in all three, that's great. That's a very well balanced PM readiness iron triangle, but a lot of people over index for credentials.
Well, and to your point, I'll give another example of somebody that I know. They, when I met them, we'll say about a year and a half ago, they were all about being a PM expert in project management. About 6 or 8 months into me knowing them, they transitioned to cybersecurity. They're cybersecurity expert. Now they're AI experts. In 18 months, do you want to tell me that this person's managed to become an expert in three industries that people spend their whole professional lives being an expert in, and you've mastered all three of them in 18 months? Or
Hmm.
even even if you did have experience in two of those three prior to me knowing you, I would never hire this person knowing them, knowing that they bounced around that profession. And going back to that image, persona, network, everything, I have mutual friends with this person. None of us believe him because he has bounced around so much, changes his tune to he changes to what the wind is blowing with, not where his actual core competencies are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think there's some nuance to this because you can reposition your experience, right?
Yes.
That's what I help my clients do. And if you do it too broadly, and if you do it too many times, that erodes trust. This is almost very similar to you're applying for the same job and now they have two different resumes. You're showing two different types of people. There's no trust there. Now, when I work with my clients, I tell them, we tailor their existing experience into what hiring managers are looking for in a very specific type of environment that fits that person's background well. We make stuff up. We don't completely reinvent them, and we definitely don't do it a bunch of times because that erodes trust. I think that's a really good point.
And I want to highlight that you are allowed to reinvent yourself. There is nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with tailoring your experience to a new invention of yourself. The problem comes in as if you can't back that up with concrete
Yes.
stories and examples of what you've done, because you talk about three different professions. And I'm kind of beating on this guy a little bit just because, well, I haven't mentioned his name. So unless you know him personally, you don't know who they are. But,
Yeah.
but the idea is I position myself as a project professional, project expert. I went through a rebrand to be the fun PM, but
Hmm.
I also have the show of the disgruntled PM. I've managed to balance those two personas as two different sides of my personality, but I'm also not ever going to say I know about cybers. I'm an expert in AI, even though I spend way more time than I want to with it because I
Hmm.
want my persona to be project professional.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the trust gap, right? If you cannot speak to your background, no one's going to trust you. So, sure, in this day and age, might putting your putting the job description in 1 point font in white in the header get you past that now AI ATS? Maybe, but there's also tools that people are using to scan for exactly that, so it might not. But anyway, like, what are you gonna do when you get into that interview and you can't speak to your experience? And you can't, I mean, someone's gonna look at your resume anyway, right? Just because it makes it past something doesn't mean they're not gonna look at your resume. They're going to, but it's just if you can't speak to your experience through the lens that you've presented yourself, trust is completely gone. And that's probably why you're not moving forward in interviews if you're not moving forward. But again, that can be adjusted, that can be tweaked. It's just figuring out how to speak confidently about your experience so that it resonates with the hiring manager and they see you as the solution to their problems.
And you just highlighted something there that I don't think anybody really acknowledges an interview truly is. Are
Hmm.
you the solution to my problem?
Yep.
Because we spend so much time telling stories about what we've done, telling our accolades, singing our praise. But how many the people that probably get the roles are the ones that flip the script in the beginning and say, "What do you need?" And
Yes.
I'll explain to you how I would solve that problem.
Exactly. I tell my clients, you go in like a consultant. So I have a hot take on this whole you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Everybody rolls their eyes. And I think it's true, but with nuance. And I think people come at this like, "Oh, it's team fit and well, I like it there and this and that." No, that's not what it's about. You are interviewing them to figure out what is your problem? How do I solve it? You're going in as a consultant to truly understand what do you need from me and how do I fix it for you? You can even make suggestions, right? Like, here's what I've
I
done in the past. Yeah.
I literally did that in an interview where I
Mhm.
read I read the description. I was sitting with the hiring manager and I kind of got them to open up a little bit in the beginning about what their problem was or what the role was. There's all kinds of creative ways to ask the question in the beginning to get that
Mhm.
information. And then I kept calling back to what they told me in the beginning of the interview of
Yep.
how this would help you, how this story and this solution helps your problem, not my problem of I wanted a job.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think what really blows my clients' minds is I will tell them if you have a gap that shows up in your interview, just say it. Both
Hmm.
you and I said at the beginning, we'll sit in a room with stakeholders and say, I am not an expert in this, but I will go figure out who is and I will find you the answer. And yeah, that's a little different in an interview, but don't try to make up experience that you don't have. You want to talk about confidence. If you are trying to speak about something that you don't truly understand, if you're trying to make stuff up, they're going to clock it in a second. They're going to know.
Well,
Just say it.
and that's how, it all goes back to that human capital and trust. You could have them, "Hey, this is a great fit. This is a great candidate." And then you make something up and they go, what's that person gonna do in a stakeholder meeting when they get asked that exact same question?"
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
can't put them in a status meeting or a stakeholder meeting or a decision point and trust that if they're making up something in the interview, what are they gonna do when the pressure's on? They're gonna do the exact
Mhm.
same thing. And
Yeah.
I just had a thought and I lost it, but the point being though is, you know, we spend so much time trying to game the system, and it's just like anything else. The more you try and figure out workarounds, the better off you are just fixing the problem that you've got right now. And if you don't know the answer, just say with confidence. Like I
Mhm.
was doing a mentoring session. I do mentoring groups or I do mentoring with veterans groups, and someone asked me about how do you answer the PPM tool question of, are you familiar with this tool? And I'll say, if I'm not familiar with it, no. But if I'm given an offer in the time between the offer and the start date, I'll do my homework on YouTube and figure out how to learn it. And I'll also and I'd also ask, who is the expert in your company on this tool, and sit with them and figure out, what do I need to know?
100%, right? And if you're used to Smartsheet and they use ClickUp, you will figure it out really
Yes.
fast. So I just had someone send me something in ClickUp the other day and I've never used it, but I figured it out pretty quickly because they're
Yeah.
all very similar. So it doesn't matter. They just want to know that you can use a PPM solution. But just no, I haven't used ClickUp, but I've used Smartsheet and they're very similar. I'll pick it up very quickly.
So you mean
It's
wait,
not.
wait. Are you trying to tell me that the DM I got from the person that built their AI PPM tool that's different from everybody else's is the same?
Yeah, it's all it's well, they all try to get the same thing done in the end, and they all function very, very similarly. And people get so hung up on tools, especially people who want to be project managers. They get very hung up on that, and they want to start. Now, I want to learn Smartsheet. I want to learn ClickUp. I want to learn Monday. Nope, stop it. You will learn it when you get on the job. I
Yep.
promise you. When I
Or
started, I didn't know any. I had never used any except for Asana, which is garbage. Sorry, Asana.
or
But
you just watch a 10-minute YouTube video from each one of the
yeah.
brands to get the overview of what they are, but you don't have to be an expert in anything other than the art of project management is what you are interviewing for.
Hmm.
Focus on that. All the other stuff can be worked out later.
Yes, yes, and it is both a science and an art because
Yes.
you've said both and both are true.
Well,
I
well,
th
I delineate between the science is the PMP. The science is
Yeah,
the frameworks, the book learning, the tangible resources of what you do. The art is putting all of that knowledge into practice.
yeah, I love the way you put that. I really do. And I mean, again, all of this comes down to trust. I teach my clients how to close that trust gap. That's it. That's all this is about. And you don't have to completely redo your experience. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to take a massive pay cut. You just need to learn how to talk about it a little
Mhm.
differently. And when you learn how to talk about it a little differently, that confidence kind of naturally shines through. Trevor, I don't write my resumes for my clients anymore. Do you know why?
Because they need to sit with their stuff and talk about what they're proud of.
A hundred
Because
percent.
when
Yeah.
you get somebody talking about themselves, you see the change in their tone, you see the change in what they're proud of, and you've just got to you've got to figure out, where is your moment to shine.
Yes. And I used to write my resumes. I used to write resumes for my clients. And what I found, I would redo it, I would hand it to them, and they'd say, "Great, this is beautiful. I sound like a project manager. I don't recognize any of this experience, and now I can't speak to it." And I realized I am doing these people a disservice. So now I teach them the art of writing their own resume. And you do it once, and it's painful, but
Mhm.
here's the thing. You all of a sudden, you really understand how what you've done is project management experience, and that is what allows you to speak about it with confidence in interviews. This is a game changer. Like having
Mm.
someone write your resume for you, it is not helpful if you can't speak confidently in a way that's going to close that trust gap with that recruiter or hiring manager.
It's optimized for a system, but it's not you. Like
Yes.
I am very open about my brand is having fun on LinkedIn. Like I'm very much I do not post boring a lot of the boring stuff on LinkedIn. I like cartoon animals. I like doing that stuff. So when you talk to me, I'm not monotone. I am very opinionated. I'm very animated. I try to be the fun person, but I'm also very blunt and I tell you like it is. And I think that this is a great place for us to get to my personalized question for you.
Okay.
Every guest gets one. So
Okay.
with your extensive experience both interviewing, working with candidates, and everything else, I want the best and the worst interview question that you've heard or asked. And by worst, I don't mean it was a, I mean like off the wall, weird, odd kind of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know if you mean from the interviewer or the interviewee. I'm going to take it that I
Either,
get to pick.
either one.
Yeah. So I was doing a resume or doing an interview with someone once. I was part of the hiring team. And this is so simple, Trevor. Like it just for me, it just like it really closed that trust gap. We are at the end and he just goes, "Hey, I'd really like to send you a thank you after this. What's your email address?" I know that sounds so simple, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy is so proactive. He's going to get it done. He already knows how this works." Like just something about that, it kind of blew me away. And that to have that be the last question too, it gave me so much trust in his like he was very serious about wanting the role and he was very the rest of the interview went well too, right? Like that's not going to be the
Yeah.
deciding factor. But that just really stuck with me for a long time because I think the confidence too that comes through in that. Like that person is not scared to ask for things, which that's a whole nother can of worms that we can get into. But that was
Well,
really good.
let me caveat that one because I know that I always say I treat the guests like I'm a listener too. Would that work on a panel interview or is that specific to a one on one?
Say, I think it's more one-on-one. I think that's a
Okay.
very casual sort of thing because if you're doing it in a panel, all of a sudden, if one person wants to and another
Hmm.
doesn't, you're creating pressure. I just think it's very much that's a one-on-one question. That's a good
Okay.
question.
Yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
the worst question.
I I'm gonna give you just two bad interview examples because I can't come up with like the worst question.
Well,
The
yeah.
most off the wall question I've heard, this was someone else's interview, not mine. What type of candy bar would you be if you were a candy bar?
Oh, I I was actually prepped on this for a during I was for a contract role. I was actually prepped
Mm,
by the recruiter. Be prepared to answer this question, and it was if you could go back in history at any point in time, where would you go and why?
interesting. I mean, yeah, you get these off the wall ones sometimes. I think they're trying to figure out your personality fit and how fast can you think on your feet. Do you freeze or do you vamp and answer? I think that's what that candy bar thing is trying to figure out too. Like if you just sit there and freeze and fumble, I think they're trying to get you to think out loud and
Yeah.
show how you think about things. But I'll give you two
Or if
examples.
you've just had those off the wall conversations with your friends and had way too much time on your hands because I think back to conversation with a prior guest and I asked him a question that I thought was really off the wall and he was like, "Oh, already had that conversation for hours in Iraq. I know the answer to this one."
Yeah, 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 exactly. And that's how some more like personal connections are made, which is a whole other aspect of the interviewing process, kind of the art of interviewing. I will give you two examples of just really bad interviews that I saw, one from a candidate side and one from a hirer side. The candidate side, I mean, I was one again, I was on the panel. I was one of like in the rounds. I was one of the rounds. And this guy, he got on and he couldn't get the tech to work. And it was a Zoom or Teams or something like that and he couldn't get the tech to work. And, we ended up, I was like, all right, call me on your phone. I can still see you, but I'll turn off my audio and we'll have the interview that way. And that in and of itself, I could have written off. But when I went back to the team to have, everyone who had interviewed him, and I said, hey, this happened, and it kind of hit me weird, they all said we had the same issue. And that was a no-go. He could have given the best interview in the
Mhm.
world, but I'm sorry, like that sort of tech faux pas, it's
Repeated,
particularly,
repeated.
repeated. Yeah, he broke trust. We didn't trust him to be able to use what we used daily to get things done. And if you can't use a telecommunication system, you're certainly not going to be able to do some of the other tech stuff that
And
that my team requires.
and we are dealing with, well, I'll assume multi-million dollar clients or hundreds of thousands of dollars of clients or even $5,000 worth of clients.
The
They
clients.
they lose patience with you, with that person, and with your as a representative of your organization real quick
Mhm,
when they've got 20 minutes, they're being billed for 30 minutes, and they spend 5 of those minutes with the person on the other end messing with IT and then saying,
mhm.
"Am I being billed for this?"
Well, no, they're not.
Well, but I'm
But
just saying in the
I
back
get,
of
yeah,
their head, all of those
sure,
things are going on in
definitely.
your world, but in elsewhere too. If you're a consultant, if you're a coach, if you're doing anything by the hour billing, that happens.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't put that person in front of a partner at the firm.
Mhm.
They're gonna get ripped apart. Like, there's no way I could do that. So there was that, and then I will give you my experience from internally. This was not at my current firm. This was somewhere else, but I was part of the hiring team, and I was sitting there watching the interview happen with another person who's kind of taking the lead, and man, she just asked the most basic, dry, horrific interview questions. Walk me through your interview. Oh, I see you went to school here. Like, tell me about this particular. It was just so dry and it was painful. And I felt bad for the girl that was getting interviewed. Like that. And I just want to say, in the interviewer's defense, there is no interviewer boot camp. Like, I have never been anywhere where
Oh,
they prepare you to be an interviewer.
if you want hot takes on interviewing people, go back to my conversation with Steven Sopko.
Mhm.
That guy, one of his things that he says is, "I've interviewed thousands, hired hundreds," and he got deep into how the hiring process works, how interviews work, and you know that I would look at that interview before we wrap as that is an opportunity for you to take control of that opportunity as a candidate, because if you can see that the interviewer is weak, that's your shot to take control of that thing and put your spin on this whole conversation of, well, I'm going to take you on the journey now since you're not taking me anywhere.
Right, exactly. You can definitely take control of a situation like that because there's every opportunity to, but you have to have the confidence
Yep.
to do so. And you have to, I mean, that's a big thing in project management. You have to take control over really tough situations.
Yeah. Well, now is the time when I want to hand the floor over to you, tell the audience where they can find you, what you're up to, all that great stuff.
Yeah. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Kayla Quijas, Quijas, or they can find me at my website, which is Kayla, Q as in Queen, careercoaching.com. There's lots of good stuff on there. I have my own podcast, I have a blog, so would highly recommend for people to reach out there. I do LinkedIn lives from time to time, so if anyone's interested in going to a live, then follow my page and you'll get notified.
Links will be in the show notes as always.
Yep, exactly.
So I want to take a moment and thank the sponsors. I also want to thank the Patreon subscribers for helping fund this show. I also, most importantly, I want to thank you, the listener, for tuning in, for listening to these great conversations, making sure that you like, subscribe, follow all the algorithmic stuff, because that's what feeds the beast, to get more people to hear this stuff, to feature all of my guests and make sure that everybody gets word out there that, hey, this stuff exists, it's real, and we don't talk about it publicly. So
100%.
so with that, I'll end like I always do. May all your deliverables be on time, your budget's in the black, and your scope not creeping. For Kayla Quijas and her cat Ritz, I'm still Trevor, and I'm still the disgruntled PM. Thanks for listening.